Have you ever wondered what it takes to land a job at Amazon? Well, in this video, I will be sharing with you guys the step-by-step process through which I was able to land a job as an L4 corporate Amazon employee. I will be walking you guys through every single thing, starting from resume tips to the interview process, which will help you secure your dream role at Amazon. Good day guys, I'm Black. I make videos on everything around personal growth, and I will be breaking this down into three different parts. Firstly, around how I was able to tailor my resume before applying for this role. And then I'll be taking you guys through the entire interview process, which covers you for things such as Amazon's leadership principles, as well as all the technical rounds that you might encounter. And finally, I will be sharing some valuable tips on how you guys can stand out from the rest of the candidates. Enough of chit chat, let's get straight into it. So before we get into the nitty gritty of the interview process, it's quite crucial to understand my background, as this will be the stepping stone into the entire interview process. So a bit about me: I studied software engineering at uni here in Sydney, Australia. And after graduating from uni, I then decided to work in cybersecurity or cyber strategy consulting at a Big Four consulting firm. I then realized that consulting was not really my thing, especially at a Big Four, and I wanted to work for a product-based company. And that's when I found this role of a brand analyst or a brand specialist here at Amazon, because it really aligned with my background experience of having ran an e-commerce store in the past, and then my passion towards account management / consulting. So hence I was able to discover this role, which then I went on to apply at the end of 2023. So now that you guys know a bit about myself, I wanted to focus now onto the actual job listing. One of the first things which I did before applying was I tailor-made my resume for Amazon, and I made sure to highlight the key experiences in my resume that directly align with the job description. So for example, the role required strong project management skills. I made sure in my resume that I had a bullet point or an example where I displayed this particular skill and what the outcome was from that experience. Another critical aspect of this part of the interview process is making sure that your resume passes through application tracking system, or ATS. So what this basically means is that you have to incorporate keywords which are currently in the job description into your resume. So I don't know if you know this already, your resume is actually first scanned by a robot or an AI bot. And if your resume passes through this ATS system, then only it is reviewed by a human. So for example, in my case, role required someone who had made data-driven decision making. So to combat this, I made sure that I had a bullet point around how I use data and data analytics to make strategic decisioning during my experience back in Big Four consulting. And now moving on to one of the most important things you need to incorporate in your resume, which you then apply for Amazon, are Amazon's leadership principles. So if you don't know already, Amazon is quite big on their leadership principles, which are basically a set of 16 values that define company's culture and decision-making process. These leadership principles are basically the holy Bible for all the Amazonians, guiding everything from hiring to decision-making on a daily basis. These 16 leadership principles emphasize on things such as trust, customer obsession, dive deep, deliver result, innovate, and many more. So what I would highly recommend each and every single one of you is to actually go on Amazon's website and go through their leadership principle one by one. There are so many other resources on YouTube or on Amazon's website where you can actually understand these 16 leadership principles thoroughly, including the one where Andy Jassy, who's the current Amazon CEO, going through them. What I'll do is I'll drop a link in the description for you to have a look at after you watch this video. So now let's just say you've gone ahead and finalized your resume with all the important keywords, leadership principles, and then you go ahead and apply for that particular role. And I'm pretty sure if you do all these things right, there's a high possibility of you moving on to the next step in the hiring process, which is basically a 30-minute quick call with the HR person. And now this is a perfect segue for us to now look into the interview process whilst applying for a job at Amazon. So after the resume screening, you are basically invited for an initial phone screening. The whole purpose of this call is to basically see your fit for this particular role and your alignment with Amazon's leadership principles or values. In my case, the HR manager basically asked about my background and why I wanted to work at Amazon. So it was quite a simple and laid back call. I didn't have to prepare too much for it. However, I would recommend each and every single one of you guys to make sure you know the job description inside out and you're fully aware of the leadership principles, which you can then talk about in this screening call as well. So now let's just say if everything goes well, you are then proceeded to the next round of interviewing, which is basically the mighty Loop interview. I don't know if you know this already, Amazon is quite famous for the loop interviews. And in my opinion, this is the most intense interview I've ever done in my entire life. However, don't be scared. There are many ways for us to combat through this loop interview and come out of it successfully. So a loop interview involves 4 to 6 back-to-back interviews with different interviewers, each focusing on different aspects of the role. And each interview is also responsible for assessing a particular leadership principle or a specific job requirement. So for example, one interview might be focused completely on customer obsession, and all the questions in that interview, which will be approx 2 to 3, and it will go for 1 whole hour, will be around customer obsession. And whilst another one might focus on dive deep and deliver results. It is really important that you guys understand that each role might emphasize on a particular leadership principle based on the responsibility of the roles you're applying for. So for a software engineering role, you'll see a greater emphasis on deliver results. In case of the role I applied for, there was again a strong focus on dive deep and earn trust because my role had a lot of stakeholder management involved. Another tip I have for you guys during the loop interview is make sure you guys literally recite and make the interviewer know that you're fully across Amazon's leadership principles and you know what they are by heart. In my case, when I was asked different questions around prioritization, I took an example of a time where I was able to dive deep. So for example, when I was asked about how I prioritize tasks, I would say something like, hey, at Amazon, I understand delivering results is quite crucial, and I've always ensured that I meet deadlines without compromising on the quality of my output. This particular example shows the interview that you're fully aware of Amazon's leadership principle and that you have gone ahead and done your homework and you're serious about Amazon's culture and ways of working. And now moving on to the technical round of the loop interview, it is quite important that you brush up on all of your technical knowledge before doing this interview. So to expand on this further, for people who are applying for all the technical roles such as software engineering or any of the AWS specific roles, there will be a specific technical interview round for you guys where you will be asked to solve complex coding problems and discuss role-based scenarios. The interview might give you a problem that mimics a real-life challenge you'd face on the job. So for example, you might be asked to design a scalable system or debug a piece of code. It is important to not only provide a correct solution to this problem and at the same time explain your thought process in depth and in detail to the interviewer. So Amazon deeply values people who can dive deep into a problem. So make sure you discuss how you were able to come to a solution, any trade-offs, and finally things you could do differently. So now that you know how to prepare for all of your technical interviews, let's move on to the behavioral style interviews, which will be a key focus in any loop interview you do with Amazon. So throughout this interview process, what you'll notice is Amazonians will continue to ask you behavioral style questions. The behavioral questions which they personally asked me, tell me a time where you had a conflict with a person in your team and how did you come to a conclusion? So anything along those lines. So for all of these behavioral style questions, I use the framework called STAR, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. And using this particular methodology, I was able to clearly communicate my responses in a structured manner. So I would highly recommend you guys to brush up on your STAR methodology and make sure you practice some context prior to the interview and have some scenarios or examples from your previous roles written up on a piece of paper which you can then use during your interview, as there will be a strong focus on these behavioral style questions throughout the loop process. So now that you know the entire interview process and how to excel at it at Amazon, let's move on to some final tips and tricks on how you can basically stand out as a candidate and how you can secure that job. So my biggest piece of advice for anyone who is applying for Amazon or any big tech company in this instance, make sure you prepare thoroughly. You need to study the leadership principles until you know them by heart. Practice your behavioral questions and have some scenarios ready which you can talk about quite smoothly in the interview process. And finally, if you're applying for a technical role such as software engineering, make sure your coding skills are sharp as hell. Secondly, be authentic. I don't know if you know this already, being on the other side of the thing as an interviewer, it's quite easy for an interviewer to know when someone is being authentic or not. So I would highly recommend you guys to be authentic. Make sure you have a proper answer to why you're applying for Amazon and why particularly you're going to join that team and what's the impact that you can make in this new role if you were successful. Amazon values authenticity and it will appreciate real honest examples from your past experiences throughout the interview process. If you know anyone in your circle who's working at Amazon, make sure you take support from them as they can provide you valuable insights on what the requirements are for that particular role. And now finally, to sum up, I've taken you guys through the entire process on how to go about customizing your resume before you apply for the job at Amazon, and then moving on to the actual interview process which you will have to go through, and things which you guys need to do to stand out as a strong candidate to basically secure that job. It is quite crucial that you align yourself with Amazon's leadership principles and have your technical skills prepped and ready to go. Hopefully this gives you a clear roadmap on what is needed from your end now and how you can go about approaching the entire interview process at Amazon. If you guys found this video useful, make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Comment down below if you have any questions or concerns. If you need any kind of support, as I will be replying to each and every single one of you. Subscribe for more such content on personal finance and anything around personal development. Until then, take care and I'll see you in the next one.